All right. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Creating Online Assessments in myCourses. My name is Barbara Setchison, and I'm here today with my colleague, Teddy Quintoro. We're both learning technology consultants with teaching and learning services. Also joining us today is Adam Finkelstein, who is the Associate Director of Learning Environments at TLS, and he will be moderating the chat during our session. There are just a few items I'd like to bring to your attention before we begin. This session is being recorded, so if you prefer to not be visible, you can turn off your video so that you don't appear in the recording. Also, the recording will be posted on the TLS website, and as well, additional resources and slides have already been posted on the TLS website. Also, please note that you've been muted upon entry, and we ask that you remain muted for the duration of the webinar. Teddy and I will be answering your questions at the end of the session. We've set about 10 minutes aside for this. However, feel free to use the chat along the way. If you have any questions, you can just type them in there, and Adam will be more than happy to address your questions there. So we have 3 session outcomes for you today. So by the end of this session, our goal is that you're going to be able to identify the capabilities of the 2 main assessment tools in myCourses. So this is the quizzes tool and the assignments tool. You'll be able to distinguish which tool is most suitable for different types of assessments, as well as describe how assessments can be set up in myCourses to support academic integrity. So we're going to begin with the quizzes tool. And as I mentioned, the quizzes tool is one of the main assessment tools in myCourses. In a nutshell, it's designed to make online testing possible. So imagine taking the exams, the tests, or quizzes that you would normally administer in person and converting them to an online format. So in the slides that follow, we'll look at what the quizzes tool has to offer, some of its most noteworthy capabilities, and what kind of assessment activities it best supports. So although its name may make you think otherwise, the quizzes tool is not just for quizzes or multiple choice exams. Although the quizzes tool does allow you to administer these types of assessments in an online format, you can also use the quizzes tool for other kinds of assessment activities. And we recommend it for the following 3 types of activities. You can use quizzes to create practice activities to encourage students to do pre-class readings, so that they come to class prepared to engage in your session. You can also create practice activities in the form of a study tool, providing students with multiple attempts to answer different sets of questions. Then once students have completed these practice activities, you can also share the correct question responses with them so that students can use these for further practice and study purposes. Another way to use the quizzes tool is to evaluate students' learning progress through low-stakes knowledge checks. So this is an ideal way to promote review and check students' understanding of material, as well as give them the opportunity to gauge how well they're grasping different concepts by providing them with feedback on their understanding. And an open book exam with a set time limit for completion is another great use for the quizzes tool. So you can, for example, create an exam with a 3-hour time limit, which emphasizes more synthesis type questions that require students to apply their skills and knowledge. So for instance, you can structure your exam questions around problem-based scenarios and require students to apply their knowledge to the given scenarios. So you'll want to inform students prior to the exam of which materials they can refer to, be it their notes, textbook, etc. And you can also include an honor code statement at the beginning of the exam to help reinforce academic integrity. So why use the quizzes tool? Well, one of the key components that sets the quizzes tool apart from the assignments tool is that you can create timed assessments, such as an open book exam, as I just described. So you may want to enforce a 3-hour time limit to complete the open book exam, but allow a 48-hour window in which students can access it so that you have a bit more flexibility due to time zone restrictions, for instance. So what this means is that students can start the exam at a time that is convenient for them, and then once started, they have 3 hours to complete it. Another reason to use the quizzes tool is that your questions can include more than just text. So you can embed videos, audio files, images, and links. So this can be useful for, say, a music class where students have to listen to a piece of music before they answer a question or a series of questions. And quizzes can also be set up so that students have one or multiple attempts to answer the questions. You can choose a set number of attempts or unlimited attempts. And you can also choose which attempt is entered in the gradebook. So whether it's the highest attempt, the lowest attempt, or an average of all attempts. Questions can also be randomized in different ways to ensure that each student receives a unique set of questions. And you can link scores directly to your gradebook so that you don't have to grade the same work twice. So that's a really nice time saver. And then once your students have completed the quiz, it can be useful to view statistics about their performance. So you can view quiz statistics such as grade distribution, grade average, question statistics, and so on. So as you begin creating your quiz questions, you'll notice there are several question types that you can choose from to assess your students. In fact, there are 11 question types in total that can be divided into 2 different categories. So we have questions where students can select a response, such as the multiple choice question that you see here on your left. And then there are question types where students can generate a response, such as the long answer question that you see here on your right. Also, the long answer question types are referred to as written responses in myCourses. So other select a response question types include true or false, multi-select, there's matching and ordering, and then generate a question types, other generated question types include a short answer, multi-short answer, fill in the blank, arithmetic, significant figures, and as I mentioned, written response. So all quiz questions can be graded manually, they can be graded manually, but more importantly is that they can be graded automatically. So they can all be graded automatically, except for the written response. The written response question type must be graded manually. So there's 2 ways to create quiz questions. You can add new questions to your quiz directly, or you can add them to the question library and then import them into your quiz. So as a best practice, we highly recommend that you create all your questions using the question library, simply because it offers you a lot more flexibility. It's a central repository that stores and archives questions, which you can then reuse within a course for different assessments. You can create multiple sections or folders within the question library, and then organize your questions by type or topic, and it just makes it easier to find your questions later on. Consolidating questions within the question library enables you to efficiently transfer questions to new courses, so from one semester to another. And you can import questions from an existing collection that you may have created previously offline or from a test bank. So you can import these directly into the question library from a CSV file. Instructions on how to do this, as well as how to create questions within the question library, as well as any of the steps that we're referring to in this presentation, are all posted as resources on the TLS website. All right, next we'll look at adding restrictions. So there's multiple ways to add restrictions to a quiz. Start and end dates can be used to make a quiz available to students for a specific period of time. So in the example that you see here, there's a 48-hour window open for students to access the quiz. So students must begin their quiz before the end time. Note that as long as students enter the quiz before the end time, they can fully complete and submit the quiz. However, if they're booted from the quiz for any reason, such as a loss of power or their browser freezes, they will not be able to re-enter if the time period has expired. Also note that the time a student submits their quiz is both date and time stamped. So as I've already mentioned, you can also enforce a time limit, as well as identify a grace period. So in the example that you see here, there's a 90-minute time limit with a 15-minute grace period. So a grace period can be helpful for students who have a slow internet connection, for instance, just to give them a little bit more time. After the grace period has passed, all submission attempts will be marked as late. And you can also identify what the consequences are for submitting past the time limit. So you can either select whether the students can continue working on it, or whether they can no longer make changes, or if students can continue working, but the attempt will automatically be marked as 0 after the deadline has passed. Release conditions allow you to create a custom learning path through the materials in your course. So for example, you could require your students to visit all of the content modules and topics in your course before they're able to actually gain access to a final exam. And finally, special access. So there may be situations where you want to grant special access to a quiz. So this could include alternate dates, an extended time limit, or increasing the number of attempts a student is allowed. You can accommodate specific student needs by granting special access to certain individual students. So allowing them time and date restrictions that are different than the rest of the class. So for example, this is useful in instances where a student misses a quiz due to illness, or if a student requires more time to write the quiz, it's possible to make these accommodations with special access. Randomizing questions in a quiz ensures that each student will receive a unique set of questions. So you can do this in a few different ways. You can do this by incorporating question pools or randomizing sections in your quiz to help reduce these instances of cheating. So shuffling can be done at the quiz level so that the entire quiz appears in a random order, or it can be done at the section level so that only specific sections have randomized questions. So when shuffled, every student gets the same set of questions, but the order of the questions presented will be different for each student. Quiz answers can also be shuffled to add additional variety to a quiz. However, this is specific to multiple choice questions. And finally, you can add a question pool to a quiz. And this adds a subset of questions from a larger question pool, so resulting in a different version of the quiz for each student. The greater the difference between the number of questions in the question pool and the number of questions on the quiz, the greater the chance that each student will receive a different set of questions. So this can be handy in instances where you wish to create multiple versions of the same exam. So we highly recommend that you preview your quiz before making it available to your students. And you can do this by using the quiz preview option to view a quiz the way a student will see it before actually releasing it to them. So in a preview, you can answer the questions, you can view aloud hints, you can submit the quiz, and you can even view auto-graded answer. So this is a great way to help you test the accuracy of your content and grading before it is released and available to your students. And finally, sharing results. So by default, once students submit their quiz, they are only able to see the score that they receive on their attempt. But you can, however, share additional information with them, such as which questions they answered correctly or incorrectly or both, as well as you can provide them with the correct answers. You can also control when students are given access to this feedback. So for instance, following grades being released or after all students have completed the exam. And if you're worried about exam questions being shared amongst students, then we recommend limiting the amount of time for which this information is made available to them, as well as only opting to show the questions that are answered incorrectly. So this way you're able to control access to the exam questions after the exam period, yet your students still have access to the relevant information that they need for their review. So this sums up our portion about the quizzes tool and what its capabilities include. Next, Teddy will review the assignments tool and what assessment types it can best support. So I'll pass it over to you, Teddy.
Thanks, Barbara. All right, so next is the assignments tool, and this is the other assessments tool that is core to myCourses. The assignments tool is a great way to collect student artifacts and track submissions. So from a student's perspective, when they submit an assignment, as you can see on the right, they get a confirmation email that their submission was received, and they can always go back to the assignment tool to show the history of all their submissions for each of their assignments submitted in myCourses. And that means from your perspective, it allows you to collect and have a bird's eye view of all submissions. So you can see those who have submitted, those who haven't, and those who have submitted late. Of course, it also avoids having to respond to emails confirming whether an assignment has been received or not, whether it's an assignment or any other artifact that you would want to track. The assignment tool also allows for flexibility in terms of grading and providing feedback to students. It allows you to leave feedback, including text, audio, video, annotate the students' documents directly in the browser. It's a new feature from last year, and attach a rubric. We'll take a look at each of these examples shortly. And when your feedback is published, your students can easily access it from anywhere. And as an instructor, you can actually see when it has been read. So you can see that there's a date there and when the student has viewed their feedback. So what are the key considerations that you have to think about when building an assignment? We can boil it down to 4 areas. The assignment type, which is, the first is the individual, which is a single student submitting an artifact or an artifact, which is most of the cases that you've seen. And you can also do groups. So when groups are created in myCourses, they can be assigned to an assignment where one group member can submit the work for the team, and the grades and feedback provided by the instructor will automatically be assigned to all the students within the group. We also have a submission type. There are 4 different types. File submission, which is the traditional aspect where an instructor expects one or multiple files to be uploaded. We have text submission. This gives the ability for students to type in and answer directly within myCourses, and for you to grade and give feedback directly without having to download or upload files. And then we have on-paper submission and observed in person, which is effectively the same feature. It allows the instructor to grade and give feedback to an artifact that was not submitted in myCourses. And when we talk about timing for assignments, it's very similar to quizzes. The key field is due date. That is when students are expected to submit, but it's marked late if passed. While the end date, it's the timing when the student can no longer submit at all. So once that end date is passed, they can't even access and upload the assignment. And similar to quizzes again, you can also provide special access to students beyond that regular timing if they need particular accommodations. And finally, for the last consideration, when you set up an assignment, you also need to think if and how you might evaluate the students. Will it be connected to a grade in the gradebook? Will you want the grade to grade students without seeing their names, so it's blind grading? Will you want to annotate directly in the browser without downloading the file? And will you develop and show students a rubric that will be used to assess their work? So some of the things to think about when you're creating the assignments. So we'll be going through 3 examples to show some of these features: a term paper, a team presentation, and an open book exam. Our goal here is to be able to showcase the assignment features within the context. And if you would like more strategies for designing assessments, please take a look at the TLS website. And if you haven't attended or viewed the designing assessment for remote delivery, I would encourage you to take a look at that as well. All right, so without further ado, let's take a look at the first example. So you have a paper that is worth a significant portion of the final grade. And in order to break down the workload for the students across the semester, you are asking them to submit several components. Or all of these 4 items are actually variations of the myCourses assignment. So 1, 2, and 3, and 4 are there. So to start this project, you have students submit early in the semester a working thesis statement. And because you want to keep it simple for both yourself and your students, you're asking them to type their statement directly in myCourses. So there's no file submission. You can grade it directly within myCourses. So you can, as you can see on the right-hand side here, you can just enter the score and give maybe quick feedback in text there. Next, as a next step, is you are asking students to submit an annotated bibliography. So this is also an item to make sure they are progressing as they should. You might decide to give a grade, for completion over here, and provide some feedback. And in this case, actually, you have enabled the annotations tool, and so you can go and give little comments directly within the document. As you can see here, it's in yellow. So next, for the draft, you're asking students to submit a Word document because this will allow you to provide feedback via track changes. So in Word, you download all the documents, you store them in OneDrive, and then you can use your tablet to annotate offline, maybe let's say in your backyard while sipping a glass of wine. Once you're back on your computer, you can zip all the files and upload it at once. And because all the files have the student ID name, it's over here, and the assignment ID in the file name, they automatically get attached to the correct student. You might also consider using another tool or using peer assessment to give students the opportunity to see each other's work, instead of just all yourself, and provide feedback from multiple perspectives back to the original student. In this case, you can use a tool called Peer Grade that will automatically assign their peers for review. And I think we have a webinar coming up either tomorrow or Friday. I think it's maybe we'll take a look at this afterwards. It's on the TLS website. And finally, as the next option for the final submission of the paper, students will be uploading their document. Depending if you have previously provided thorough feedback in the draft portion, you might decide not to download all the files, but read it directly in myCourses, providing annotations and to grade the paper. And actually, you will use the rubric here, which will automatically provide a score based on the level attained by the student in each criteria. So when the rubric is graded, you can see that the total score is here. And with myCourses, the rubric attached can also be displayed to students so that they can see it before they are actually submitting their work. So they actually have a sense of how they're going to be evaluated when they're writing their assignment or before they're writing the assignment. Okay, so let's take a look at another example. This is a team presentation. And let's say you have assigned students to groups of 3. You create the groups in myCourses. And for one of their final submissions, students will need to present. In order to provide flexibility to students, you did not choose a specific tool, but you're allowing students to record a video using the tools of their choice, or even present it live in Zoom, as long as they could meet the presentation's requirements. So you could choose to either file submission, if students are uploading videos, or an observed in-person group assignment. You also created a rubric to make sure you were evaluating students with the same criteria, regardless of their format. And you recorded a video to provide overall feedback, which wouldn't be easily expressed in text format. So as you can actually know, so this is the video. Actually, no, you recorded an audio file because you had to move to your basement as the kids were throwing a tantrum and making a mess upstairs. So there's 2 options, video or audio. And as another option, you can also have students evaluate each other, either groups evaluating each other's presentations or students evaluating each other's contribution in the team. And so that you would use, you can gather feedback using forms here. And another option is to use the video assignments tool. And this is a tool that not many folks know, and I would encourage you guys to take a look at it as well and see it in the resources. It allows students to give comments to each other in line within the video. And it allows videos to be uploaded, larger videos, up to larger than 1 gigabyte, which is the limit in myCourses. And if you're thinking about 1 gigabyte, it's about 38 minutes of video in 1080p in this format. So that's another option to take a look at. And so, okay, we'll look at a final example. And this one, you're planning on delivering an open book exam. So this is a particular example where I'd like to highlight that we are using both the assignments tool and the quizzes tool. So you need, first you need a space to collect the academic integrity cover page. The students have to read and sign. The students can take a picture of the form signed or digitally annotate the document and upload in myCourses. Afterwards, they go into the quiz. You can also have randomized questions in a quiz, but then you need students to maybe write out their steps and attach a file specific to your area. And that's where you could use the assignments tool to gather these submissions. So to make it easier for students, you can also link the submission of the assignments directly from within the quiz. So they don't have to go to the quiz tool and then the assignments. You can keep them in the quiz tool, but they click on the link and it brings them to the assignments tool. And then you can grade this portion blindly without seeing the students' names in the assignment tool. As you can see highlighted in those red boxes, the assignments, the students' names are not there. So the key idea here is use many tools to match different parts of the exam that will help students submit their work and for you to give feedback. Another option that you may think about if you have large classes and you require lots of handwriting from the students, CrowdMark might be a tool that you might want to explore. That is also on our TLS website, and we'll post this afterwards. So the key idea here is there's a couple of things that we want you to take away is select one or more assessments tools that will be able to measure the learning outcomes achieved by the students and also allows you to provide the right feedback, whether it's automatic, using the quizzes, whether you're using the rubric or any other format. Another good practice is to inform students in the course outline of the tools that you're thinking of using. So this gives an overview of what is expected from them and also what technologies they might be encountering. And I think this was mentioned before a few times with Barbara, but it's something that we want you to keep in mind as well, is provide an opportunity for students to practice the assessment methods in a low risk and low stakes environment. So it's perhaps graded, but it's not part of their final grade, so that students have the opportunity to see what it would feel like to use the tool before their graded assignment. So an example of that would be to create a course outline quiz where you can ask them a few key questions pertaining to information on the course. Another example would be to maybe create a pre-test before the student actively learns the material. I think that it's similar to Barbara mentioning the knowledge checks. They can help students identify the areas they need to spend more time on. And another example could be to create reading quizzes to verify if students have completed the required readings before attending, let's say, a live discussion in the Zoom breakout rooms. So for all these examples, try to use the tools you're planning to use for the high stakes assessments. This could mean the material to be presented to the students. So if you're thinking of using images and videos in a quiz, so they have a sense of what it would look like on their screen. And also the type of answers students will be providing. So if they're recording videos, uploading different kinds of file formats, or taking photos of their work, give them a chance to do that in a low stakes environment. This will also help students identify which areas they might need to get support for, whether it is with IT, so they can call IT before it gets in time, during their assessments, or if they might need a particular accommodation, so they need to get some other types of software. And lastly, test the assessment you created by previewing as a student or you can even partner with a colleague to test each other's assessments. You can also enroll a colleague in your course as a demo student and have them try it and follow the instructions as if they were the student. Okay, so we've really covered a lot of information today and the past few weeks. Good next step is, if you haven't taken a look at it, is the myCourses Essentials in myCourses. And this is, it provides a step-by-step of what we talked about today, and you should all have access to it as instructors. We also have a series of webinars that we've already given. All of them have been recorded and have been posted on our TLS website, and we can also show you where to get to them right here. So, so the recording of our current one today will be posted on this page, and you can also basically stream the recordings from the links on the right-hand side and download the slides. Something to note as well, they're on YouTube, so you should be able to view them at a faster speed if you wish to do so. And also you can click on the link here, make sure to expand, and the resources and readings are there. So all the links that Adam has been posting there up to now as well are also listed there. So if there's anything else that we've gotten as well from questions today, we'll be posting it here. So this really sums up what our session is, really our presentation format of our session, but we want to ask two questions before we leave you here. Is one, what's your most important takeaway from today's session? And two, do you have any additional questions on what we covered today? So feel free to type your answers in the chat, and we'll be using the next 10 minutes or so to answer these questions.
I just wanted to bring up a question. I think it was just only posted privately. It was from Ashish. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. It was about, I'll read it out actually. It says, I would like to give quizzes where students get credit for completing versus not completing the quiz, regardless of the accuracy of answers. So is there a way to automatically grade quizzes for completion versus a non-completion? So this is something that I would have to test a little bit further to be absolutely sure it can be done for all question types. We do have a blog post that I'll post for everyone in just a moment that does give a workaround for open-ended questions, so written response question types, where you can use, it's basically a workaround that uses, there's a regular expression, which is one of the settings in this question type. And so if you put in a specific code, then it's able to grade based on completion. So that's one way. And there are other question types. I know there's the arithmetic, significant figures, I think the multi-short answer that also have this capability, but I'm not sure if it's available in all. So this is something that I'll double check, and we'll post any additional resources about this on the TLS website where that Teddy pointed out to you before. And right now I'm going to post the blog post for everyone to see. Yes, very good comment from Christopher about the next step being hands-on work. That's, yeah, definitely the best way to learn more about the tool is to try it out, to try them both out and to preview them and see what they look like from the student's perspective to really give you a sense of how everything works.
This goes also, want to mention, we gave a lot of webinars and a lot of information across the past few weeks. Something to keep in mind is to use you don't have to do everything, right? Just use the ones that you pick and choose that really are appropriate for your course, for your students, and what will help you in the long run as well. Once all of this remote delivery as well is gone, you still have these wonderful resources that you've created.
So I'm not seeing too many questions. I guess we'll give you a couple more seconds to type in any questions.
Barbara, this is just Adam. There was a good question that came privately from Donetta that was talking about how to be able to grade in the assignment tool and record the annotation. So annotate and record at the same time. And it's sort of an either or. And the best suggestion I had at the moment was, do a recording with Camtasia or Zoom of yourself annotating and then upload the video. But if there are any other suggestions you might have, I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
But I'm not sure I totally understand. Is it that, Donetta, is it that you want to record yourself annotating, or you just want to be able to record your voice as thoughts come to mind and you're annotating within the document? Okay, but well, you could use the annotation tool for that.
It's the recording while annotating.
I have a thought, if you don't mind, Barbara.
Yeah,
There was one before the audio recording was available. I know some instructors used to use the tool called Audacity, and this was just pure for audio, and it allowed you to do that like offline, so you don't have to be online when you're recording your thoughts. And then you can upload that file. It's Audacity. I can type it. But there are many tools as well that you can use to record. I mean, you can also use your phone to record it, whether it's your video or the audio, and then you could just post it as a file and attach it to the assignments. So it gives you a bit more flexibility. But you can definitely upload feedback files, whether they're audio or video, in addition to using the myCourses tool. Oh, okay. We can definitely unmute you. Let me just see if we can unmute your question. Okay. Sorry. I think we're doing it multiple. There you go. You should be able to ask your question.
Okay, thank you very much. Barbara, I was wondering if you could just go through the chain of steps with the quiz tool to create a spreadsheet quiz. Like, how many steps are there, and what are they?
So I had a hard time hearing you there. You're cutting in and out for me. So if I understood correctly, it's how to set up a spreadsheet.
Yeah, the steps.
Spreadsheet steps.
The steps from going from the quiz tool to the spreadsheet.
Oh, to a spreadsheet. Oh, if you can export to a spreadsheet. Yeah. I think it would be easier to share the instructions on how you can export rather than going through them now. So I can share those with you directly by email, and I can also post them on the TLS website.
Okay, if you could send them by email, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
Just to double check, I was just trying to see, like, so did you want to keep, like, archive those questions after you created them?
No, just one-time use.
Oh, one-time use. Okay. So, but does it have to be in a spreadsheet format, or can it be in a printable PDF?
That's what I'm asking.
Okay, spreadsheet. Okay. Yeah, we'll take a look at that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so if there are no more questions, I guess we can end here. I think that looks like it's about it. Teddy, what do you think?
Yeah, that's about it. I just have one more question that I have to answer. It came in privately, so but definitely, I don't want to keep everybody here, but I'm going to answer the question. But thanks so much for attending, and yeah, and definitely take a look at the resources that we have available on the TLS website and review the webinars.
Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day.